Peace. How's it going? Okay, I'm here. Today's class is empty. Students that usually come have told me they're on their way or late. Either way, we can collect our students here. Okay. I usually get here early. I got here exactly at 6 p.m. So it took me a while. But this is the inspiration for that song, the build I did. Peace. Please take your seats around me. This cipher will reveal feats that'll astound. See, it's education. An inside drawing of your unseen inside. Of course, with creativity rises and flows subside. My enlightened knowledge means that KOS is accountability, responsibility. So bathing yourself daily of believing the facility. The controversy brews when I advise against free transport. Babies are the greatest. No need to contort, conform, or character distort. Just forms of support. Over 20 years, building the next generation. Told you on 9,000 miles bars ago. On rainy nights at the Law and Justice Square, I wonder how long those FBI files on me go. Shit, we still build. We still build. That's the verse. You're all here. You're all making your way here. So it's going to give you the tools, the insights, the things that you could use to prove what you have been seeking, what you want to learn, what you want to do. And like I always like to start the course off, I always like to start with people's questions. So I let you file in with your questions. Every student that is a regular student should be having questions that they have every single week. Okay? This is how their minds should be working. The questions that they are seeking to answer themselves, the questions that they are on the fence about asking, and also the work of learning more to develop more questions. Okay? Part of that is also done by seeing what we do know and then practicing whether we could explain what we do know well. A lot of times you test whether you know something well if you can explain it. This is why when we build, we memorize 120 lessons, but we also have to build with an understanding. Can we explain the things that we truly know and understand? This is the difference, and exercise, the difference in understanding. Now let that sink in a little bit as I move around the chairs here. Anybody's table responsible for that. This is actually good. Okay. Peace to the God. Peace to the earth. Harmony. Peace to the God. All right. Okay, so it's just me in the digital class here and empty seats in the beginning. When I started to teach this course, I refused to make banners, advertisements, or any kind of thing. I realized that no matter what, there would always be a classroom. So I would sit here and just read or write until it was time to go, or I got a student to walk in the classroom, a potential student, someone interested in asking questions, or anything like that. Certain elders used to tell me to I won't say who they are, that I had to be more dynamic in my approach. Um, give more hype, more excitement to it. Everything I did up to that point has been in hip hop. I didn't want to make this a show. I wanted it to be something different. You know, if there was theater in the classroom, then let it be the presentation of the teacher's educational curriculum. You know, not in the marketing before. You know, so I just couldn't do it. I also saw it as paying dues, some way of earning earning my way, you know, into having the right to teach. You know what I'm saying? So I would stay there by myself. I would stay there quiet by myself. Kasim, peace to God. All right, we got the guys. We got Bar Kim, got King, Kamal, Kasim, the Earth Harmony. Any questions that you or anyone else that's watching this has? Political education and civilization enrichment. You know, today is May 4th, the Culture Day, right? And it marks, it's very interesting that last Friday, as I said, I went to the wake of my enlightener knowledge me. And the very next class that I teach, May 4th, literally mark, not literally, actually truly is 24 years. 24 years, right? Since I walked into his classroom. So 24 years ago on this day, I walked into my first civilization class, you know? And like I said, knowledge me was known, but he was not as popular as other people think, you know what I mean? That as other legends, you know, but he was a legend nonetheless. And nicest thing about that day was to hear all of the stories from the elders. You know, they really went above and beyond to tell me stories that I didn't know about. You know what I'm saying? You know, and it was really nice to hear that, though. You know, it's the kind of day where you go home and you write it all down. Don't want to forget it. And it was real peace. I learned things about his immediate family, how he was raised. You know, things like, you know, Knowledge Me didn't spend time talking about the way he was living, the things that he was going through. And I took that note. And that's why people, unless you really know me, you don't really know what I'm going through. If you know that I'm going through something, it's usually because it impairs the function of the classroom. You know what I'm saying? If I have to miss a class and stuff, I don't try to keep things away. I just try to keep it not about me. So that way we can share and we can build and stuff like that. So and that goes for the life I've lived and things like that. Like those difficulties, I try to keep them away from the classroom. You know what I mean? This is different. This is a different style. This is a different style than people were accustomed to. You know what I mean? All the years I was teaching, people assumed, and mainly my peers, you know what I'm saying? This was not a thing for the elders, you know what I'm saying? This was a thing for the peers. That a lot of them had issues, you know, they assumed where I was from. They assumed the life that I lived. They assumed the journey that I took, right? Like King Kamal, like we said, right? The 9,000 miles journey, you know what I'm saying? And I think that this knowledge needs to be taught without the hells of our reality being the only vantage point. That we could teach this even if we meet students that don't relate to these kind of hells. You know what I'm saying? That's not the binding force. That's not the binding force of this knowledge of self, no matter what anybody says. You know, I think that's the main thing. You know, it's something to think about. And no matter how long the longer that you teach this, and I've had it magnified because I end up being engaged with more students. Um, the longer that you teach this, the more that you teach this, the more that you realize that the life that you have lived, though, doesn't necessarily, there is no life that could prepare you for all of the issues of humanity. You know what I mean? If that be the case, and really mean, and you relate to everyone that you're teaching, as far as the reality that you've lived, the things that you're seeing, and say, oh yeah, I did that too, I did this. That's usually because you're attracting the same type of student. You know what I'm saying? In the classroom here, that's not really happening. And then with the other forums I've been on, being able to attract different students, that's not the case. You know, you attract people from all walks of life. And that's what I mean, all walks, different realities, different circumstances, you know? So just something to think about, you know? Mhm. So if anybody has any questions about anything, there was an assignment that I gave last week, but I can't remember what it was. The student that does it, though, will remember. Ah, that's what it was. The assignment was Yakub and what he did of making the devil was necessary. Remember this? It became necessary. It became how we come to this situation here. So we know that out of any type of time travel movie that could be made, the one thing that would absolutely change everything is if Yakub didn't do what he did and make the devil. You know what I mean? Um, and the question was then, if this was such a hell horror, and indeed we may see it this way, what would you do instead to deal with this situation? Yakub did this because there was impending separation, impending difference. There was dissatisfaction among the people, and he went to the root of that. And he did go to the root, but that's what he did. He didn't do anything different. He did this, you know. So, and it's a philosophical exercise. There is no right answer to this. But then I ask you, what do you think that what would you have done? Because I want you to be in the position of power. I want you to understand that position of power. And if we can't be in that position of power, then you won't understand it. Having this knowledge of self is to realize that you are in this position of power. You just don't see it. So now it's time to exercise in that vein. And that was the assignment. And I would love for everybody to email me that if they can do that. I would love that exercise. It's a great thought experiment of life. I have one here from a student, and it's really, really good. Yeah. I'm reading over a student's essay on this again. I read it once very quickly, but I made the mistake of not putting it in my notes, so I didn't get to go through it with my grammar pen, you know, my red grammar pen. It's very good. It takes into account what he sees today. It also mirrors what he sees back then. Barkim, that's peace. Whenever you get the question, right? King, you said, God, we've built on different styles of studying to commit lessons to memory. What's your thought on audio? Again, I know we touched on this before, just finding different ways to memorize. If you recorded yourself quoting 120 and then just kept listening to that, that would be great, God. You know, I mean, that was how most people learned it when they learned it with Prince. Firstborn Prince used to make cassettes of him quoting 120. And then that would be how people learn. So certainly, absolutely. Halftime, peace. You said, how would you respond when a potential student who has studied these teachings asks you to prove that the story of Yaqub is real? No, I don't worry about it too much. You know what I'm saying? Because I think that with all of these teachings, I take the 120 lessons as something that has so many things that are near correct, that have led to other things being proven, and that have so much that we have proven, that Elijah Muhammad in those 120 lessons is allowed to have things that are not necessarily completely shown and proven, but like any scholar of merit, their ideas that are not proven yet are worthy of being studied before others who haven't been proven yet. So what I'm saying is that his track record is solid. So that means that the so much of the lessons have never were never taught, were never shown and proven, were never declared until they were in those lessons in that manner, in that detail. Because we can talk about other things like Moors, you know, the Moors and all, right? But they didn't have it in that detail. And so many other things in 120 lessons, right? Elijah's teachings, right? Obviously, have been shown, proven that they deserve the merit to be studied as a scholar would study a question, a postulation, an inquiry. You know what I'm saying? So even if someone could not bear witness to Yaqub being true, that whole distinct story, they would have to take it and say, as a scholar, it still deserves merit because so many of the other things were not shown and proven from others that we put much more time and effort into proving. You see? So that's important. You know what I mean? And as far as that, I think the first teaching about Yaqub is that every single grand idea comes from one man, or it begins with one man. So even if you say, look, and this is too incredible, this is too epic, one man couldn't have done all this, then we can say that it was originated with someone's idea. And in that respect, though, that's really all the lessons are really showing, that they that they originate with one aspect. I mean, the culture degree, you know, the culture degree in the 1 to 14, right? Today's degree, well, you know, In the 1 to 14, today's degree in the 1 to 14, says, why do we run Yaqub and his made devils from the root of civilization across the hot Arabian desert into the caves of West Asia, as they now call it, Europe? Now, we build and we know that, wow, he wouldn't have been alive to like usher them down there. You know what I'm saying? You know? So in essence, though, Yaqub becomes the descriptor of a mentality, the descriptor of a bunch. So there are many other descriptors. You know what I'm saying? But what I'm saying is that there is a birth record of the grafted man. You know what I'm saying? They do appear, and works of archaeologists have shown this. You know what I'm saying? They appear suddenly. You know what I'm saying? So there is something that goes on with them. You know what I'm saying? And they genetically they cannot reproduce themselves at will. In other words, in any environment among any people, they cannot come out on top. So something has to happen for them to continue. You see? And so they only continue in isolated realities, which goes back to the reality that there is a large possibility that they had to have been made. In order for them to be made, they had to be in a sequestered reality, a controlled environment. Okay? Because anytime they mix with the other original people who have a birth record that is endless, and we go deep into that reality when we study, they can reproduce themselves amongst all of the original people. The black, brown, yellow shades come out in all the realities, all of the ciphers, right? So these are also things to take note. All right, Barkim, whenever you're ready, it's all good. I'll order everything. Shaka Ne Lu, peace. It's like asking 85 to prove things in the Bible. I don't know. I don't know if that's the same thing. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that would be the same thing. You said the 28th degree has been and is being played out. Certainly in metaphor, certainly in reality. I definitely agree with that. You know what I mean? But if we're to be, I'm not even gonna say 5%ers though. If we're gonna, if any man or woman that wants to be worth their salt with their thoughts and their ideas and the truth that they have studied to be a truth, like they have studied it impartially, and they see it as a truth, they can prove it as a truth, they ought to be prepared to prove it as a truth. You see what I'm saying? Right? Halftime, you said my dilemma, and I certainly don't mean to make devil here, but how do I tell someone that there is no spaceship and in the next breath say, don't worry about that yet? What do you mean, don't worry about that yet? I'm not really sure what you mean by that. You know what I mean? Because when we're teaching about Yaqub, if they ask about Yaqub, it's a simple answer. You know, there is no archaeological data digs or any information that shows that he existed. What we have is the research of the grafted man, the European, the Caucasian white man, that when we study him, though, we know that he has a said birth record. Genetically, archaeologically, he suddenly appears. If we go through ancient texts of stories of ancient indigenous people, right, we see the same story of the pink man being made in a cave, right? So this is a story consistent even with oral histories, right? So all of these different ways of showing coincidence and consistency bear out. So then now you say, well, then how did this all happen? This had to happen in some kind of way. And then other people postulate, and with good postulation, good insights, that white man, the white man came about through a lack of vitamin D, or certain things like in the winter environments, like the Iceman inheritance and stuff. But the problem with that is that there are original people that thrive. There are original people that thrive in those cold environments with limited vitamin D exposure, right? So then, if the original people can survive anywhere, then it is not just environment that causes the grafted man to come about. You know what I'm saying? It cannot be a mere genetic mutation that is basically random and hard to to produce and has not been shown to be able to produce again and again repeatedly as something like albinism, because that is something that has to be a mutation on a large scale. So then that doesn't quite go. You see? But these are all logical things. So when we say stuff that actually has more merit than the others I just mentioned, that get much more play, much more thought, much more insight. Peace. Right? So that's something, you know what I mean? All right. So that's something that gets much more insight, But King, you said how would one take the best part for themselves? Is that what spending time in your favorite parts of the lessons that you can relate to? No, no. That phrase, the best part for yourselves, is like it's similar to don't cast your jewels among swine. You know what I'm saying? Share what can be used, but at times though, know if it's going to be useful. Is it going to be useful to share everything that you have and the time, the energy, all these things, the opportunity? Or does it behoove you better to just stay and just study and learn more for yourself? That's what I mean. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, right? This happens to me often. Obviously, I'm listening to music on my ways home or outside, listening to music. Well, pretty much listening to music all the time. Listening to music, and I'm reading if I'm taking public transportation and stuff, right? But then I might hear something. I have to make the decision though. Do I continue to read and educate myself, intrigue myself, or even entertain myself, right? But sometimes reading is just entertaining yourself, right? And so do I do that, or do I take the time and say, listen, I think this person could use what I have to say here or show, you know? So then I do, So um so that's the thing. You know what I mean? I hope that answers the question. You know what I mean? Kasim said, why did Yakub have ill intentions in the first place? Weak genetics? Well, that's the thing. I've talked about this a lot of times. I don't know why we keep thinking about Yakub like he had bad intentions. A Quran is a solar year, 25,000 years. Solar year, a solar year is 26,000. He decided to make a devil to deal with this reality that was prophesized to be 600 years in making, 600 years, 6,000 years in rule. That's not actually, that's less than a quarter of a Quran. Okay, so 6,600, right? You just is less than a quarter of 25,000. So what I'm saying is, like, we're looking at things from a smaller perspective, but take it from a larger perspective. Is this really a lot of time? You know what I'm saying? He may have condensed something in a smaller amount of time than just letting things play out the way they were. I'm not saying that I agree with it. I'm not saying that he succeeded in that. What I'm saying is, though, is that what he prophesied and what he did was expected to go 6,600 years. Excuse me, my shoulder locks up. But so it's how you look at things. You know what I mean? It's how you look at things. So I don't see that he's looking at things ill. You know what I'm saying? Again, good or bad needs to be taken out of the equation. But the success of the reality is, again, a king. This is why said the assignment was to say what you would do. Because what you would have to do is make sure that this reality is resolved in less than 6,600 years and less than a quarter of an entire Quran. Can you do that? Can you do that? I don't know if you can. I know that Yakub, that is the intention. You know? I don't know if he is. If we see we're still dealing with the devil's civilization. So it's been a little bit longer. See, that's the thing. Prophecies don't necessarily all go the way you plan, the way exactly planned. You know what I mean? We're all living in it. We're all taking part in it, and we're all devising our own counters at every moment. That's what makes everything exciting. That's what makes everything exciting. We are constantly counter planning. You know what I mean? So that's something that ought to be taken into account too, right? But I'm not going to say what he did was a good thing or a bad thing, and that's the difference here. I don't want you to look at it as a good thing or a bad thing. When you stop to look at it as a good thing or a bad thing, then you start thinking, well, how could I be more efficient? Because when a king, when a queen, when you make decisions for the larger and larger populace, the larger the decision made, the more impact there is. The more impact there is, the more possibility that you have guaranteed that certain people will not be benefited by it and could be hurt by it. You have a small family, okay? You make decisions for the family. Everybody's always in tow. But even with a family of 2 or 3 members, someone at some point will say, that, you know what, that is the best decision, but it still sacrifices me. It still hinders me, and I have to deal with it. Now multiply that by a large populace. See? That means that the people and the citizens have to understand this reality. They have to understand the repercussions of this reality. Right? And you say ill in the sense of wanting separation versus unity. How do we know that the end game of what Yaqub did wasn't for unity? He did things in line with the idea that it would be 6,000 years, that there would be an end to this rule, that this rule would be limited though, and that there would be insight then drawn from this rule. So it's not really that, you know what I mean? It's not necessarily that. I want everyone to have their own thought on it and then build on it, right? But it is something to think about, right? King, and you said in the 4th degree, the 1 to 14, couldn't it be about someone who causes trouble amongst righteous people in general? Sure it is. Sure it is. But when we talk, because it says Yaqub and his made devils, we're talking about that original Yaqub. Sure. We're talking about Yaqub, you know what I'm saying? And his made devils. Yaqub is the mentality and the origins of that. And it reminds you in the lesson that they have a goal, that they have a specific goal. There is a reality to the people. They just weren't efficient the first go around. That culture degree in the 1 to 14 is the first go around. Right? Halftime, you said isolated reality portion of you, but that's peace. That's peace. Barkin peace. You said the question I have is on the 1, I'm assuming 1 to 14, 3rd degree, the answer about Columbus discovering America and now knowing myself, he did it. I want to know what you thought about that. Thought about what? Columbus not discovering America? I don't know what the question is, guy. You know. If you like what I think about that degree, even if I don't see that, obviously I would never say that he discovered America. I would never say that in parlance language and stuff. But to me in the lesson, I'm just going to speak until if you clarify if I'm going the wrong path with this. But Columbus was the one that was ordained to make it official. So when we talk about discovering, it is very clear to me that Columbus discovered America. Okay? Because when I see the word discovering in this sense, the word is the idea is who's the one that officially was allowed to conquer in the name? And that word discover is in line with conquering. So who was the first to discover, meaning discover what is to be conquered? Then yes, Yakub is that. I mean, excuse me, Columbus is that person. You know what I mean? And for the degree, the degrees don't have the the first day when I started the 1 to 10, when I already memorized the 1 to 10 when I started learning what knowledge mean, but I was really learning the 1 to 10 now. You know what I mean? And I used to tell them, like, it's not called Indians. Like, we're Native Americans. You know what I mean? Like, we're indigenous and stuff. And I've always had an affinity. To me, the Native American, that's a 2 million. I'm one of the 2 million, so I'm like, yo, we got to use the right terms for my brothers. Like whether they, Pawnee, Lakota, all of this, right? And he said, no, that when you got to go through the lesson so you can see why they're called the Indians from India, the roots. And a lot of the 120 lessons, none of it was written to be politically correct. None of it was, it was all to get a meaning of that time. And just like any text, you don't read a text and say, well, how does it read today in today's parlance? You read, how did they mean it back then? Just like if we read the Dhammapada or read any of the ancient Buddhist texts, we're trying to figure out what was the way that they used these words back then, not now. You know what I'm saying? And when we do that, that's when we really start to understand the insights and the way these words were used, like what they meant and all these kind of things. Look at me making a mess here. I don't want to mess up my connection here. Right? Okay. So I don't know if I answered that, but that's my initial thought into this here. You know what I mean? That's my initial thought of that. It's hard to remember the weather of every single day, specific days, but when I got knowledge of self and born, it was a hot day. Every single day was hot. It was inconceivable to even wear a sweater, let alone a light jacket with a sweater as I came here today. Just random thoughts here. Classroom didn't have these nice desk chairs. They were beach chairs. The floor was impaired. That's a good word, right? Impaired. With violation. Somewhat destitute. You know what I mean? Needing of repair. Not of the school. I used to always look at Siakil and expect him, remember the perfection, my brother Siakil. I used to always look at Siakil and expect him to fall through the floor. Because the soft spots, there were soft spots, especially right before you walk into the classroom. And I always thought, like, yo, if I was his height and weight, I just kind of wouldn't step at that spot right there. I'd kind of walk over it. But he never did. He was always okay. But me, even though I was I know I'm certainly at least over 130, 40 pounds lighter than him. I still walked over that spot until he fixed it, But these are the things I think about. You know what I'm saying? Thank you, God. These aren't even, these are just my blue light glasses. You know what I'm saying? I try to wear them as much as I can, though. You know what I'm saying? They're not prescription, though. In fact, all these books I write and stuff, it was my daughter who gave me blue light glasses to use while I write. And after that, when those broke, I had to get more because I was like, I can't write for the extended amount of times that I write without wearing blue light glasses. And when I can, I even read with them, even though I have blue light filters on my phone. The phone itself, I wear the glasses just to give it extra. But Yeah. You know, I try not to look at the lessons. The longer I've had 120 lessons, God, like Barkim, I try to look at things not from what it should read, but what it does read. What does it read? What does it intend? And how can it be useful? What was the intention then? You know what I'm saying? Because I know that Elijah's not going to be saying or being taught that the original man is the father of civilization, you know, created everything, right? Even though that phrase father of civilization wasn't originally in Supreme Wisdom of the Nation of Islam, right? That was something the father added, but they taught that. They taught that, right? He taught that we fathered everything. We made everything. We created everything. And then say that someone else found something. He would not be saying that he found it, but he found it for them, you know, and he did discover it for them. You know what I'm saying? Right? Just like a student comes into your classroom and they say, listen, I've been reading this, and you know, like student happens all the time. Like, you know, like you say, listen, I discovered I discovered, you know, these great Wu-Tang songs, and I'd be like, hey, they did discover it for them. They discovered it for themselves, you know what I mean? And just like that, they would know that they know that for the most part, other people know it exists, of course. You know what I'm saying? Um, G1, you said makes me do the knowledge more in depth to the word genes, right? Gene, right. There are a couple of books about genetics. I'm gonna make a list of genetics books and why they're all good to read, and I'll make them available to the students that email me. But I'm gonna make a list of them. Just a few. There's like just a handful, maybe two, just to start out with two or three really good ones that are modern and stuff. And some can be used like reference books just to keep update. Some are used as a primer to get you to learn more about the way genetics work. Because sometimes, you know, like I think sometimes in the research that we research for such a goal. Like I used to read like this. I used to read when I got 120. I used to read so feverishly. I still read feverishly. That's not really a good sense. But I used to read feverishly to the focus of finding things that directly prove 120. And what happened was I would drift in reading any type of history book, and I would be, or any kind of science book, if I was reading parts that didn't really directly prove degrees in my mind, you know, that were in 120. You know what I'm saying? If I didn't see an immediate correlation with degrees in 120, I was like, nah, this is, you know, and I would kind of read, and you know, you can read and let things just drift out of your head and shit. You know, you don't remember everything you read. You know what I'm saying? Um, when you're reading, and you should be reading in mass amounts of work, uh, lots of things. You know, what you're trying to remember is where things are. Have a recall for where information is. So you're not, you know, I just finish, like I'll finish history books, but they'll be huge. I don't remember everything in it though. But what happens is that I'll remember where this research takes me. So like I read what was the name of the book? I'll pull up my list now. I always like to get the name right, because I could say the name wrong and that might stick in your head, and I have done you a disservice. Okay, so I'll take up the books that I have read this year and completed. Okay. Just if anybody cares. All right. At this point, I've read 29 books this year, finished. So obviously, not every single book I've read only this year. There's a lot of long books that I started last year. But one of the longest I read since last year I finished was The Making of Asian America, A History by Eric Lee. This book I can give you if you would like to read it. It's a great book about, you know, Asian American history. I think it lags at the end. Um, but the history, let's say if someone starts to talk about the coolies and how slavery turned into something else after, with the way they used the Asians and imported them, you know what I'm saying? And it was really like a low bar level, a lesser form of slavery, but nonetheless, slavery itself, still some form of slavery. I don't remember every single last detail, but now I know where that information is. You know what I'm saying? And certain things cling to me to refer to it. You know what I mean? So this is what I mean. And the more you read about particular subjects, the stronger that you get with that. You know what I mean? So that's very important. Hmm. Okay. All right. CI wise, peace God. You spoke about knowledge as facts, wisdom as emotions, and understanding as the resultant logic. I don't know if I spoke about it like that. Usually people juxtapose logic and emotion. There's a different dynamic. Please clarify. Um, I don't know if I explained it in that simplicity. I wouldn't attach wisdom to just emotions. I wouldn't attach knowledge to just simple facts. And I wouldn't see understanding as just resultant logic. So I wouldn't use those terms, although they apply in some kind of respect. What I would say is this. This is what I'm saying. Okay. Knowledge is that actual true fact or that original idea that you have as a creator. When you wisdom it, it has an entail of emotion because now you are using it and you are seeing how it interacts with you. And for that, there are emotions that are drawn with that because the way that it interacts you now makes it something special that's unique to you. So being in touch with your own emotions, the way that you're moving, the way your nature is, the way that you react to things will be special to you. It is something that is controlled. It is something that is understood. It is something that is real. And when that interaction happens of usefulness, by just simple usefulness with you, then there is the understanding that is born. And that understanding I like to call a revelation of purpose. This purpose is driven. This purpose only has a fuel because it is fueled by emotion, because it is your will that has given you motion, that has given you nature of emotion, activity. And all activity is expressing some type of emotion, right? So if I could say it that way, I don't know if I would reduce it like that, but it has its play in all these things. Okay. Um, King, you said speaking on Elijah, a lot of the answers to questions 120 are they from his own understanding? If so, shouldn't many answers be from our own understanding? Uh Very good question. Elijah's answers are his as a student. So keep in mind that these aren't just his wins. Okay? There is no proof though. There is no proof that this is his understanding. What we know is that that these are the answers of a student, so they could be rote teachings. Like this is the way he was taught, and this is how he is speaking it back. You know what I'm saying? So no, I don't say that this is his understanding. I think that would be an assumption of sorts. Okay. Um, I think that when we deal with the lesson, I think it's a fine exercise to come with your own answers to certain questions. But I don't think that I wouldn't say that you make this something where you just say that's my answer, because your understanding is not ever should be like 120 lessons. 120 lessons answers don't change. The Father changed certain bits. We don't change them. We deal with them as is. We create our own understanding about all of it. And that understanding is not static. It does not stay the same. So to say that we make our own answers would imply that we have a final definitive answer. Our answer to who is the original man is going to agree and show and prove the answer that Elijah gave. But ours can never be just one thing and stay that way. So we can make our own answers, but they would theoretically, philosophically, ideally, and I say necessarily, must be different. Not different that they totally change and contradict and defy what was once said that was shown and proven. I mean, always be adding on. Just like when I had to build on who is the original man and shown and proven a degree, right? Remember that first essay? And I shared it with you, King Kamal. I have my own answer to that degree. That was it. But that answer, that has changed and is, I say that's, I don't know, could be hundreds of pages long if I sit down and write it out like that. You know what I mean? Theoretically, we would like it to be. We would hope it to be. And we should be willing it to be, right? So no, we wouldn't make our own answer. Say this is my 120 lessons because your answer is never supposed to be finished. Your answer is never supposed to be finished. Peace to God. Master, peace, God. Peace, Sam. All right. I got your text. It's all peace. If you're there or here, it's peace. Oh, King, he said, have I ever met Crazy Legs or anyone from that scene on Beach Street, Night at the Roxy? No. If I did, I don't remember. I did meet Crazy Legs, though. You know what I mean? I have a picture with Crazy Legs. When he used to do classes, free classes at the Hunts Point. There's a large community center, Tats crew, the legendary graffiti crew. I was going to interview them because those guys were really great. Nicer, no one has a more perfect name for himself. Nicer, because he really is a really great guy. Nicer, Bio, BG 183rd. Those are the brothers of the Tats crew that I met that day, 1996, and that's when I first met Crazy Legs. I don't have a relationship with Crazy Legs or anything like that. I never sought to cover the eras that I came in, the 90s. I always sought to cover what was happening right then and there. Because when I was a journalist, I saw myself as being a creative writer as well and making my own element. So I didn't want to cover what was happening. I wanted to cover the people like me, the people that was doing shit right then and there. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I was doing. So when my career takes off in the 2000s, I'm covering people that are up to date, up to that time. You know what I'm saying? That's what I cared about. So I wasn't looking for like legends and things like that or have the ego because I feel I could. Obviously, there's no time that I felt I couldn't do better interviews, do better coverage, better historicizing of the legends. But that's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted to do. You know what I'm saying? So like, let's say like once I finally start getting a handle away from the magazines and doing my own stuff, I'm looking for people in the 2000s. I'm looking for people like J Live. That's when I first built with him. People like Mr. Liff. These are the people, in the 2000s, the dark ages. You know what I'm saying? Right? I was pitching people like, I'll tell you, look, people like Thurston Howell, right? The General, Big Vic Lowe, my big bro, right? MF Doom, the legend, right? That's who I was pitching. Madlib. These are all people I pitched to the major magazines. Jean Grey. There's so many, and I got totally laughed at. You know what I'm saying? Totally laughed at. Hellraiser. When he had that dominant legacy in the 2000s, when he's that flood of fucking crazy albums. He was incredible in the 2000s. Bronze Nazareth. My brother Bronze Nazareth. These are the people that I was finding in 2000. I knew about Bronze in 2004. You know what I'm saying? 2004. You know what I'm saying? I was supposed to do a major piece on Hellraiser right before he got his aneurysm, and I finally was able to get in the magazine, and then he got his brain aneurysm. Great brother, great brother. I always root for him. You know what I'm saying? My brother Kevlar 7, you know, at the time, the years that we were together, though, I was teaching him. You know what I'm saying? That's the God. You know what I mean? But that's what I always wanted to cover. You know what I'm saying? Look at my brother AP, the Overlord, piece of the God. You know what I'm saying? Look at the God. Like, that's what I always want to do. Like, I find great joy in that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I cannot say that I knew that AP, the Overlord, was going to be this dope. But I knew he was dope. I knew he was dope. I knew what I was hearing. You know what I'm saying? And I think AP or anyone else could tell me differently, but I think because when I see talent, I'm able to describe the talent as in such a good level, a great level, I think, that people are able to see it, intrigue with it, and then the artists themselves too. You know, it gives them a battery saying like, listen, I need to be going harder. You know what I'm saying? And wow, you know what I'm saying? Wow. You know what I'm saying? My man AP is so dope. Everybody's biting him though. What a world. What a wonderful world. No, it's a wonderful world. You know, seeing people bite my brother AP. That's the best. That's the best. Don't get mad. Don't get mad. That's beautiful. That's beautiful though. They went through all these great MCs and shit. They went all these great MCs that are out today, and they said, I gotta copy this. I gotta copy this shit. What AP, you know what I'm saying? In fact, I'm not gonna say it now, but I'm up to date in the next book on all of AP's stuff. I got to build with AP about it. But I wrote the last one I wrote about was the album with Don Carrera, which was dope too, of course, duh, right? But I finally described what it is that you do that is different from everybody else. This is something everybody does, but you do it different. It's more augmented. I'm saving it for the book and everything like that. But I'm gonna throw you a line, God, and I'm gonna throw this at you later, so you could, see what I mean. You know what I'm saying? So you see what I mean. Who else is here? All these builders here. Most people don't know like how much Bronze Nazareth, Kevlar 7, Remembered Imperfection, how much they're family to me. All those brothers, that whole clique. You know what I'm saying? The Wiseman, you know what I'm saying? All of those brothers, because, and a lot of it is just because I put their art where it belongs. You know what I'm saying? I wrote about their art as if they were the top makers. They were the top. They were at the top. Anybody writing a verse today, Bron's got something up on that level. You know what I'm saying? But people think it's just, beats and soul samples, like that's all he's got. It's not listening. You know what I'm saying? But oh, Indigo, peace, peace, peace. Yes, yeah. He's a great brother, Hellraiser. You know what I'm saying? I root for him so much. You know what I'm saying? Man, but very, 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 influential. You know what I'm saying? Because when everything was horrible in the 2000s, like those are the guys like Doom and Thurston and Hellraiser. Like these are the independents like coming out of nowhere. Then later Sean Price. The reinventions of themselves, and absolutely King. Yeah, the bars, everything was shit. And King knows bars. King Kamal knows. You know what I'm saying? And again, King Kamal, like yo, this is what I wanted to write about. God, I wanted to find who is great. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the hard thing to do. A journalist, a music journalist, a person to spot talent though. Like other people are good at spotting talent though because they have a bloodsucker's lenses. They have a bloodsucker's lenses, and that's what makes them good. You know what I'm saying? I think that it is harder to do that when you intend to promote them and work with them and be honest about their skill level at that time. You know what I'm saying? And that's a little bit harder. You know what I'm saying? You really got to dig deep and stuff, you know? G1, you said culture of hip hop question or topic for you, Lodi. Have you ever read Ed Piscor's comic Hip Hop Family Tree? No, I am not. I am not a big, I don't read a lot of comics though. I got to tell you something. You know what's funny? I have spent so much of my adult, not much. If we could say that when I hit 19, that's my adult life, I have spent my adult life making myself enjoy science books and history books more than movies and 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 comics if there ever was one or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm watching like a movie or if I'm having fun with like some movie or something like that, or I have like graphic novels that like, you know, my brother-in-law gave me a graphic novel. What was it? The Watchmen. Because my twin brother told me that it's better to read that first, then the movie. So I was like, okay. I read it like a snail. Like I get itchy. I can't concentrate. You know what I'm saying? Like I know it's fun and I can't concentrate. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. It's a thing, but I do have them though. But I've never even heard of that comic. Word is bond. Like I never heard of it. You know. Oh, AP, what crew you was talking about? Wiseman, right? Yeah, Wise, you would have fit nice in there. You know what I'm saying? All those brothers are great, though. You know what I'm saying? All those brothers, the brothers that are in the crew, out in peace with the brothers that's not with the crew anymore. You know what I'm saying? All of them. You know. And you know, I say we talk about journalism. That I mean, the massive amount of work that you put in Indigo is something, you know, just writing and making these connections and stuff. It's not easy. It's not easy to make these connections. It's not easy to be on point. You know what I'm saying? Like people don't know how difficult it is journalism. That's why most journalism comes out sounding like press copy, you know, promo press. You know what I'm saying? Um, but yeah, like the albums that you do, Indigo, like yeah, Indigo has such a dope voice though. It's so high pitched though. You know, it's like some females have such a great voice though. You know, just like we love the intricacies of male voices. We haven't really had enough hip hop from women to enjoy all of the different types of voices. You know what I'm saying? And I feel a lot of women's voices, they imitate men's voices, like the aggression, stuff like that. So we don't always get the detail, the nuance of a female voice like we do with soul music and things like that. You know what I mean? So we don't get to hear all these pitches. You know, like there's so many different pitches. You know what I'm saying? Indigo, you have Indigo has a high pitch like Nejma Nefertiti, but they're so different, completely different. You know what I'm saying? Um, it's amazing to hear. You know what I'm saying? It's dope. You know what I mean? And so you know, for the students out there, this is the stuff to look into. This is the stuff to look into. You know what I'm saying? You know, King, you said, God, have you heard anyone press you for not covering their album or not interview you in them yet? All the time, all the time. I think I don't get those problems too much though because people see my videos of me doing kung fu. Where is Bond? Because until you know, when I didn't put up videos of doing kung fu, people used to harass me a little something, and I said, "This nigga," you know what I mean? But that don't happen anymore, and I don't know if that's a correlation. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that's a correlation to put, but you know, I think that in my whole career, I've always been honest to people, and I've been pressed for people to. They ask me to give them grades on their albums, which I don't give grades. I don't give grades. Everything is unique. You know what I'm saying? If I say something that say is 4.5, let's say AP and Indigo, since they're here, I say something's 4.5. She's 4.5. AP's 4.5. Their albums, whatever it was, they're not going to be the same 4.5. And I think it's not valid. It's not valid. People deserve to take a little time to say, well, what makes this different? Why I ought to check it. You know what I'm saying? Because I'd rather a person say, listen, Sunez wrote too much. I'm just going to check it myself. Or let me see what he is going to say. That's the only two outcomes I want. I don't want any other outcomes. I don't want any other outcomes. They don't want me to sweep the leg yet. Yeah, because a lot of people think that writers, like we're people that wanted to be rappers, or like we just couldn't handle it in the street, and we do shit in the boardroom. Like I was getting stories and going to neighborhoods. I used to have to go to neighborhoods to get a story. You know what I'm saying? I used to have to go to these neighborhoods. Like, yo, all these neighborhoods. I've gotten lost in every single neighborhood. I've gotten lost in parts of Brooklyn I'm not from, right? I've gotten lost in Bed-Stuy, all of these things. I've gotten lost in the Bronx. You know what I'm saying? I've gotten lost where I got lost in New Rochelle. I got lost in New Rochelle. I was like, where the fuck am I? What we did, I remember we went up there to interview I&I, you know what I'm saying? And I don't have that interview because they got magnetized the damn tape. But got lost going up there, you know what I'm saying? Like this is where not where they come down to we go to the label and we sit down at some corporate desk room, you know what I'm saying? Some corporate meeting room and do the interview. That's later. That's late 90s where that became a regular thing. You know what I'm saying? Journalists back then, they used to have to go get the story. Now we just, it's nice now. Now we just DM them the shit out of them. You know what I'm saying? Right? But, yeah. And I'll say this, though. I think that the immensity, of, what some people have done, as far as journalists and stuff. This is why I love the idea that we could write books and everything like that. You know what I'm saying? That's my little push to I would love to see a book from Indigo, just new work, past work, everything. You know what I'm saying? These voices and all those things. You know what I'm saying? Right? But yeah, look, I'm here to take all the questions. I've been here. I've been on here for an hour, so I'm gonna be here until 8:30, at least. See how I said, pardon the oversimplification above, only 200 words allowed. No, please. I appreciate the clarity. Am I correct, though, in seeing you going beyond the simple logic emotion dichotomy, or how do you see it? Yeah, I see emotion differently. Say somebody's controlled their emotions, right? Okay, look, there were things that I know. So, like in a fight, right, where we talk about where emotions have to be controlled, someone does something, I have to control my emotions, but I need my emotions to charge everything up. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't be emotionless though. Like it isn't Neo and I'm just, I have to get charged. I have to put the chi, you know what I'm saying? So I think that with everything, every time you get knowledge, you have knowledge, you have that original idea. The reality is that it has to be dealt with within your reality. Wisdom is the using of knowledge, and the using of knowledge, right, has to go through an emotional reality. What facilities have you developed up to this point? What have you used the most? What have you used the least? What have you understood the most? This is what is going on. And for that, there is emotion in that. That character, that reality, the reservoirs of how you use the knowledge, the wisdom, right? That wisdom is going to be based on your emotions, the nature. Okay? So that's important. That's very, you know. So I don't go with I just don't simplify it. I think knowledge, wisdom, and understanding is simple enough. I think from then on we ought to make it a little bit more complex. AP, you said, do you think they'll ever make a movie of the father? I mean, I would love to see it, but I don't know how. You know what I'm saying? As long as people argue about the father, like, and use it as hadith, and he said this and he said that, and we do what he said, and because the father never said, I said it, so do it. Firstborn Prince never told me that. He never told me, well, the father said that's what. When the father said things, it wasn't do it. It was, if I just told you to do something, I also need you to ponder and figure out why I told you to do it. So it doesn't mean that he just said do it because I said so. No, you were expected to ponder it, to figure it out, to get to some insight, to go back to him to say, I think this is why you did it. You know what I'm saying? There was an interaction. There was a teacher-student relationship of interaction, of development. And that's something that can't be lost in that. Peace, God.
Peace to the girl.
All right. Any questions that you have, God, let me know. You're a priority. There's about one or two here. So when I answer them. So yeah, I don't say, as far as me expecting it, I'll say no, because I don't really want to do anything that has to do with making a movie about the father, because I don't want that headache. I don't want that headache of he said this, he said that.
That's crazy. I thought about mentioning that.
You know what I'm saying? I don't. I don't. It's a hassle.
That
Like,
has to happen,
let me just tell you something, right? I'm very calm and collected, right?
Mm-hmm.
But everyone has to understand that this infuriates me when people that have nothing to do with this shit, or people that were never near any of the elders that I was around, and start saying shit that Sunez doesn't know the history, Sunez wasn't there, or he wasn't with us. You know what I'm saying? Or other peers of mine, that they'll be with someone and say, I was with him and you weren't. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, there's very few people that have been with as many elders as me. You know what I'm saying? And I never claimed to be the expert to be able to do such a movie. Okay? But guaranteed that I am qualified to teach here, which is expert enough.
Right.
If I'm qualified to teach here in this classroom, you know what I'm saying? And do it this long. And that's something that it infuriates me, because a lot of people that in the last couple of years, that they're no longer here. In fact, some of them have been exiled. And not exiled because they said the wrong thing or anything like it. They did the wrong thing, God. Think about that for a minute, right? They didn't just say the wrong shit. They're saying the wrong shit a lot, though. We're teachers. We correct and correct until the end of time. They did the wrong shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm teaching here not just because I say the right things. I was taught to say the right things. I have an understanding that is unique to my own self. But I did the right things. I taught the right things. And everyone out of here is going to leave this classroom with tools they can use, or that they'll use, or tools that they won't use. It's one or the other, though. They're not going to leave and say, I didn't really, you know what I'm saying? So that's the only thing that infuriates me, because I don't know who would be doing this, or what would be doing this, or what would be the mentality. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes we don't know the thing. Like, here's a problem with movies. Movies are propaganda, so they always pitch to the propaganda market. Right? Let me just say it from myself, my point of view. Okay? Because I watch a lot of TV and film. My twin brother's an actor, and he studies film. Like, he really studies this shit. The way I write about music, he talks about film. We be OD. And I always tell him, I always have to look at movies, every movie, and find things I like because no movie covers everything that I'm about. You know what I'm saying? Nothing really relates. You know what I'm saying? And when you make a movie, they are designed to relate to the audience that they're expecting could be the largest that could be possibly had with that type of movie. So that means that I think a lot of the major understanding that will not come across with the movie Made It About the Father that is sold would literally be that he taught the black, brown, yellow seed. Do you know that that is one of the two most important teachings of the Father? Like innovations of him being a teacher, besides let's say three, besides supreme mathematics, that's an obvious duh. You know what I'm saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is teaching the babies. I've taught this all the time, and I was with Najee when we was at Knowledge Me's funeral. And Najee, my eldest, said the same thing to somebody else. The Father was the only one to teach this to the youth. Nobody's ever done that.
Right.
There are countless texts, ancient texts. I will show you. I love them. I read them. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And they'll say, man, it's God, man, it's this. But it's like the Kung Fu movies, man. You got to go through 36 chambers. And when you go through the 36 chambers, though, and you're like 70 years old by the time you get this knowledge. You done went through so much to make sure you're mature enough to handle the shit. And you're like, whoa, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like the thing I was telling you, like Confucius did not start teaching until he was in his 60s.
Right.
And obviously these are places that revere elders. They don't just chuck them, toss them, right? They take care of them. They're much more healthy too, right? You know what I'm saying? It's not like we're talking about fast food times. You know what I'm saying? They're much more able-bodied, right? They're not just eating the swine all crazy and shit. But the movie would miss that. And I definitely think it would definitely, if it was on any commercial level, it certainly would miss the focus on who the original man is, the black, brown, yellow seed. You know what I'm saying?
So you think the movie will focus more on him?
I think it would focus on him. I think it would make it a ghetto story.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I think it would make it a ghetto story. I don't know what angle they would put. I don't know what they would think would be the most important. You know what I'm saying? And again, this is my bias, though. This is my bias being influenced by his students and the students of his students and them teaching me to teach at this school this long. This nation's been here 50 plus years. And I've been teaching here almost half that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's just fucking crazy to me, God. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So my position is very biased on that. I don't know if any movie could hold that. If it was on a commercial level, I would worry about that. You know? And I don't know, you know? But these things I think would be inspirational.
Right.
Just like they are to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they would be inspirational. G1, you said, I always think of doing a project on the Father. I would need like an extra 10,000 to get the rest of the unreleased news interview that recently was revealed. I think in this sense, a movie, what you're saying would be more documentary. I think a documentary could be made. That would be quite useful, I think. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that could be impaired.
The movie would have to tell Elijah and the nation.
Yeah.
And that's when they get
and the movie would need conflict. See, movies need conflict. So movies need enemies. You know what I'm saying? Movies need a thing. And the most zen thing you can say about the Father, though, is that let's keep it real, though. You know? They returned him to the essence and stuff like that. And he had enemies and people didn't care. And there were Muslims that were issues with him. But the Father, deep down, he could not have. I'm going to tell you this. And this is something I learned watching Firstborn Prince, but I learned it for myself, God. The Father could not have done what he did if he was focused on hatred and fighting the enemy.
Right.
That is too much exertion. He would not have the energy to do what he did. And I'm saying that from someone that I saw it chew up the elders. And one of the things I learned from Firstborn Prince was like, when I finish teaching, I let it go. Whether I did well or not, though, I let it go in analysis. I make my amends to do certain things better or continue more augmented what I did good, and I let it go. You see what I'm saying? And I understand that no matter how much I teach, not everyone will get it though. And that means most people won't get it. I respect the percentage. I respect the percentage. You know what I'm saying? No, this is what I mean by respect the percentage. I respect the percentage of the degrees. 85%, 10%, and the 5%. Doesn't mean that these percentages will always be. It means that this shit is to remind you that it is hard. Most people will not get it. When people do get it, they won't be able to really be it. You know what I'm saying? Right? When I say my children's mathematics, you get it, right? Use it, you got it. A lot of people will get it, but they won't use it. And if they use it, they may not get it. They might have gotten it, but they won't get it. You know what I'm saying? And so they're not really gonna live it. And that's most people is not gonna live it. The percentage of people that have this knowledge of self that don't live it out, I guarantee you, God, in your travels, you have been around 5%ers that never said they were. That never said they were because they were being 5%ers for their own use.
Yeah, I see that.
It feels like blood sucking when I say it like this.
Nah,
it's more like, yo, I'm living my life the right way and I don't have time to teach anybody, and this way I'm going to do it. And they'll say that they're God. And then there's other people that say that they're not in this nation, but it's because they don't want to say that they're God. They don't want to use it, but in all their endeavors, they never deal with a mystery. They always deal with their reality. They always deal with what they have to do, and they become civilized people. So it's a small percentage that say, listen, I'm going to share this. Because when you share it, God, that's when you feel the ostracizing reality. If I got this knowledge, though, and I went back to my family and no one ever knew this, though, they just called me Eddie, Edward, right? Whatever it was, and nobody ever knew, I would never have any of the troubles that I had. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Never. Not one trouble. You know what I'm saying? But I'll tell you this, though, because I can't leave it like that. I would have never had this glorious life.
Right.
The word is bond. I would have never had this glorious life. You know what I mean?
I gotta get some water, Sunez.
And that's peace, God.
I'll be right back.
Listen, I definitely could edit it. I don't know. I think, though, that Allah the Father deserves, at least to the very least, a documentary, because people are so visual. And I think that the history needs to be told. It is New York history. It is world history. It is all life history. And I think that that's something that ought to be shared. You know what I mean? So now, as far as the movie, I'm still. I don't know about a movie. I'm not so sure about a movie. You know? You know how much magnetic some actor has to have to be able to play the father? No matter what, I'm gonna watch the movie and be. They could put Denzel. They could go back in a time machine and get Denzel, 30-year-old Denzel, and I'll be like, I don't know. And I'm gonna tell you why it'll always be insufficient in some way. And I respect acting so much, especially because of my twin brother. I really respect the art. I think that in my life, I have seen the students of the Father, the students of the Father, be so dynamic, so charismatic. You know what I'm saying? And Man, I don't even know if you could get a movie to get somebody to play Papa Wu. You know what I mean? Like the real freedom. You know? These people were so charismatic, man. It was so dynamic, you know? You know, you spend a day with Dumar Wadi. You spend a day with Firstborn Prince. You spend a day with Knowledge Me. You spend a day with Freedom Allah, Papa Wu, and you're like, you go home and you was at a movie. That shit is a movie, God. You know? And it passes down. It passes down. Like, you know, you guys, you all go on YouTube, you watch Dark Kim and stuff like that. Like, he is really that charismatic all the time. You know, he really is that, you know, dynamic all the time. Like, it's not when the camera's on and shit. You know what I mean? Like, you know, imagine, imagine the father, man. It would be nice if it was just solid facts, right? Easier said than done. Right? I see you, Malik. Peace of the God, Malik. I think you text me, but you, I mean, yo, I during the week when I'm training, I go to bed so early. You know what I'm saying? So like, I'll read, but I'll be falling asleep at 9 o'clock, 9:30. You know what I mean? Because I wake up at 4:30 to train. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know. But when I was a newborn, one of the first adventures that I had in Mecca, like traveling with an elder or a brother with the knowledge that was, you know, like a peer, like Darkim, because he's like big brother. He's older than me, but not by much, but he's way older in the knowledge. And one of those first adventures was with Freedom. And let me tell you something. Those skits on Iron Man, I heard the entire build. You know, like there's like it's like a minute, 45 seconds or some shit. I heard the whole thing. And man, this is why Wu Tang is so fucking good. You know what I mean? There was a, you know, there's a thing of, you know, there's a thing to create cleverness of words and stuff, but to create words that teach humanity at the drop of a dime, that are charismatic, that are dynamic, that reach to the youth that don't want to hear anything. This is hard. This is hard to do. Very hard to do. You know? I was saying, I don't know who would play the father.
Yeah, right.
We go get, if we go in the time machine and get Denzel 30 years old, I don't know if it still would have as much charisma needed. You know what I'm saying? And dynamic and magnetic. It's a special.
I definitely was thinking about that, just doing all my research. It would cause a problem because everybody would feel they got some, you know what I'm saying, part of it. And oh no, I personally feel the elders is going to. It wouldn't happen because the elders is about to say all types of. You know what I'm saying?
I think, yeah, people are, a thing like that, people will always have a problem.
Yeah.
They would always have a problem because they would say that there was some error. Mm-hmm. People will find an error. Listen, God, I have spent years here. If we added up every time someone came here to try to inspect, we're not even going to add the disrespectfully, and tried to inspect or stall the class or demean me in some kind of like passive aggressive way, all that kind of shit. If we add all that up, it might add up to about a year's worth of classes. You know what I'm saying?
But they just would be disrespecting or just be.
These are the challenges. You see what I'm saying? And I couldn't teach here if I just had a closed door. I couldn't do that. I had to teach here in a way where I had to let people come in. So that's why I said it would add up to a whole year's worth of class time because I had to let them come in. I had to show and prove. You know what I'm saying? And it's always the same method. How do I not let that get to me? Is because I always let things come. And then, there's something, it's such a bullshit teaching when he says it because it's so dope. But when Bruce Lee says, you got to let the punch come to you and then hit it as late as possible, he has like the fastest hands ever. So his hand-eye coordination was ridiculous. So he could really see the punch. You know what I'm saying? So like when he intercepts it late, if he blocks it late, like, this is an incredible block to block something that late on purpose, right? By being able to do that, if you were able to do that, it means that there's no body tell. You did it without committing to anything. So you didn't have to do this. You didn't have to. But in real life, like, oh shit, you know what I mean? Like, you see how I'm moving here because I'm like, just in case, like if this shit, his arm is heavy, like, right? No, but I'm blocking here at the last. I see everything. Boom. It takes so much skill, but that mentality is how you deal with a naysayer. You let everything come to you. Let them say what they're going to say. Let them say all of it. Okay? Then you demand the forum to then speak. And you be concise. You be brief. And as soon as you get that understanding out, though, then you can play with them. You know what I'm saying? And I always learned to do that. I got a lot of practice at it, too. Quite a few years, right? I was telling April and May are always important. April marks when I first started teaching here, right? So last week and stuff is officially, 23 years teaching here, right? But on this day, May 4th, 24 years ago, I sat, we're there, but pointed that way. But there where you're at for the first class I ever took here. That was when I first met Knowledge Me, was May 4th, 24 years ago to this day. You know what I mean? Right? So it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah, you heard that, right? Yeah, yeah. That's the build verse, But when I wrote the build verse, this for the song "The Build" on our album with King Kamal, King Kamal was talking about police brutality, the devilish men. Sadat's verse was about building with the seeds or whatever. So I was like, yo, let me write the rhyme like if they're coming into the classroom. You know what I mean? An introduction. Malik, you said when Elijah and Fard are building, who transcribed it? There's more than one question in a lot of lessons. I think that they formulated that over time. You know what I'm saying? And put that together. And I think that was their intention. That was Elijah's intention, was to put that all together. Someone with a lot of knowledge, but very bad grammar. Not bad, horrible grammar, but impaired grammar. So 120 reads like he wrote that, like he wrote those answers, and that he put the questions in as well as like what he remembered Fard questioning as. You know what I'm saying? They do read that way. And here's the thing: the way 120 reads grammatically, right, which is your clue. See, when somebody's grammar is off, though, that's when you understand who wrote it more. Like, for example, right, when you listen to a record, right, and people have slang or whatever like that, right? They have their own way of saying things and type of words that they use continuously. a lot of times this slang and stuff, the words are wrong grammatically.
Right.
They're technically wrong, right? Raekwon, whatever it is, right? It doesn't matter. Right? That's, if you see that scripted, that's how you know it was that person. So now if somebody wrote something like that, you be like, oh, this guy wrote this shit like Raekwon.
Right.
And now we know he's copying. We're not seeing the correct grammar. We're seeing the unique flaws in the grammar, the decided flaws in the grammar.
You know what I wanted to ask you? I wanted to ask you, because I was talking mathematics about this. Yeah, I mentioned it. Did Master Father teach Father Divine?
I don't know any proof of that.
Because he mentioned that, because Father Divine was going around saying he was God.
Yeah, I mean,
and I spoke to mathematics about it, and he mentioned that Master Father. He said he taught Noble Drew Ali too. Is that true?
I don't have any proof of that. People speculate because they learn the same things. You know what I'm saying? How do we know that the same things just weren't coming?
Right.
That's the problem with this, though. The teachings are actually correct. So who's to say who brought it? It's like I bring 1 + 1 is 2, and then somebody brings, 1 + 1 is 2 another day. You know what I'm saying? I spelled it with words, and they wrote it with numerals. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say who brought that when you think of distinctly. What I can say is this, though. What I was saying, the grammar that you see in Elijah's speeches, that really are his books.
Okay.
Right? That they're speeches. That's the same grammar that you're seeing in 120. So you know it's his writing. You know what I mean? Or his dictation, if somebody wrote it down.
Didn't he drop out in the 3rd grade?
This is what it said, yeah. Right? This is what it said, yeah. But remember, that means it makes sense somebody doesn't have it correct, grammar. It doesn't mean that somebody's not well schooled. And why? Why do I say that? Because he also was the son of a preacher. And if you're the son of a preacher, you're trying to analyze and learn one of the hardest books it is to learn, the Bible. Now, I'm not talking about the complexity of the content, the complexity of the way it's written. The Bible's not even written in current English. It's written more in the late Middle English. It's not Middle English. That shit would make no sense to us.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's very late, Middle English. So it's not how we speak and stuff. So you have to really, it's an effort,
Mm-hmm.
And I doubt that there wasn't a developing acumen as he went along. You know what I'm saying? That's what I suppose.
Right.
We all know that he was a great learner because he was such a great educator. It's just that his way of education was in the evangelist mode. He's in it. People don't like when I use that word, but Elijah was an evangelist. I call him an evangelist of truth because what he was teaching was true, but he was an evangelist, though. It's not like he went out there in the speeches he gave and he said, I will prove this right now. He didn't. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
There's claims and things that lead us to proof, but even in Message to the Black Man, there's not much proof. You know what I'm saying? There's declarations and connective declarations where you could say, okay, he declared this and that. They must have something to do with each other. We go into this and we're pairing it with what we know. And that's how we get to these answers. Mind you, it's biased because we're at a later time.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it'll seem like it's more proven. You know what I mean? Indeed, Malik. Many critique and cold kern. It's a good way of putting it. Yeah, AP, that's exactly. You said your grandma went to school, but she was the smartest person that you knew. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. And now, is that person able to articulate, translate, transmute their intelligence through different forms? See, the education isn't really all that's lost in the education is the ability to have the format. You see what I'm saying? The formats, the tools, right? They didn't have the tools of education, though, but he was still able to educate. So that means that someone definitely taught him very well. You could say Fard really taught him very well. I mean, that's for damn sure. Mr. G1, you said you were saying this to Malik. You said, but it's about the question. Sister Bernstein, Sharif Muhammad was the one who transcribed. Who's the transcriber? Commitment to help Fard transcribe and circulate his dictations. I converted from longhand to typing. That was a quote. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I did. Did they make a book of her though? I remember there was. I don't know if there was a book by her or about her. Because if there is, I don't have it. Yeah, but that makes sense because all of this stuff is transcribed and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? And if it was her, that means that she's the one that got everybody just write the word lose with two O's. Right? Everybody's reading loose. Everybody that studies this knowledge, when they spell lose with two O's, I already know that they studied the libelous. Because he makes that error so consistently that you think it's correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, I can't tell you how many builds I've gotten from students and things like that over the years, and it's always the same: lose and loose. It's, yeah. That book I don't have though, but I remember there was a book. Yeah, I gotta see if I put it on my Amazon list. Malik, you said teaching them to build a home is more than just a home. Yes. He did not teach. Musa did not teach him how to build homes for themselves, and they all came down as carpenters. Like that's not what it meant. It means that they were educated to take part in the society, that they could be more effective, let's say, to do their devilishment if they were embedded and useful to the society. They show that they could have some kind of worth to the society. This is important. So build a home for themselves means that they could actually build a life for themselves in the society. Peace, guys. Okay, I'll be here till 8:30. So any questions that people have? So Sam, the question for you is,
okay.
What is today's mathematics?
Today is culture.
Culture what?
Culture freedom.
Culture freedom. How do you see that?
Well, I've been thinking about that, and how I see culture is it's like environmental, like as far as my culture, I look at what's going on around me, society. You know what I'm saying? That's how I look at culture, and what I take from it and what I give back to it. You know what I'm saying? That's how I look at it.
Say that again, the last part.
The culture is how I look at it is what I take from it and what I give back to what's around me. I look at culture as being like environmental.
So what you give to it and what you take from it. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's interactive. Right. That's the reality of it, right? Mm-hmm. So okay. How to deal with the mathematics daily though, right? When you either as a newborn, right?
Mhm.
You make sure that you have an understanding of the day's mathematics, the degree, today's mathematics, or you have a question about it.
Well, I do have questions about it a lot, and because when I read, you know, the mathematics and what they mean, um, sometimes it's not that I get confused. I try to because you know I have to go about living what I learn, and you know when I take the contest, because sometimes when I build with somebody, they will be like, okay, well, you know, today is culture freedom, and then they'll say something that I'm trying to get where they're coming from as far as that dealing with them, and it confuses me. So when I read the lessons in the math, I take it from, you know, what I understand of it, and you know, just how I deal with it in my life. You know what I'm saying? Because for quite some time, like I told you before, the lessons that I had wasn't official. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, so now that I have it officially, I'm trying to really, really, really embed it in myself. You know what I'm saying? And be around people who I can constantly learn from. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, for a while, Sunez, I wasn't getting it right. It's like, you know, I'll be around people who say they God, or they even got their pens, but they're not living it. And then when you come to them to try to learn something, they thinking you're a fool that they can manipulate. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
you know, and a lot of people really don't live it. So, you know, it's like, since I've been coming here, I've also been seeing things manifest in my life. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, I've been moving around the city a lot, and, you know, a lot of the things that I've been talking to myself about and building with myself about since I've been coming here, and with my meditation and being into myself, I've been seeing certain things manifest. So, yeah, I'm taking it seriously, but I know I need to get more focused as far as, you know, myself. And
All right, let me show you how to do this. So it's easier. You have what I'm teaching you. You have what you're also challenging yourself to show and prove deeper. The simple definition is what you should be learning too. So,
right,
what is culture, right? It is the way of life, right? When I get deeper, I teach to you is interactive awareness, though. So you get that part of it being something, right? But then you're getting the idea that it's what I live. You know what I'm saying? So now when you see what you live, though, using that mathematics in the most simplest way, you're saying, well, culture is what I'm living. And if what I'm living has to be based on what was prior, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, then that means that there must be understanding that is being lived out here. Now you take the day to focus on what you are living.
right,
What are the parts of your reality that get repeated all the time, that get done? Are they really based on your understanding? What parts of your life get repeated or done continuously, and you realize have very little understanding of your own?
right,
See, this is how we find out when we're following. We're following. We're obeying. We're not really thinking and making our own decisions, or even having the wherewithal to accept the decisions we made. Like we say, there's a best knower,
right,
but not everybody's the best knower, and we are never the best knower in every situation. But did you make the decision of who that other best knower is? You see what I'm saying?
right,
This is part of the culture. So when you're looking at culture, this is what you're looking for. You're looking, and when you're dealing with the day's mathematics, so this is what you're looking for. Can I define it, or do I, first of all, recall what was taught to you?
right,
Then how do you see it? Can you add on? Can you not add on? Can you describe it in your words? Simple words. Okay? And then if you can't, then think of a conversation you will have with someone that might get this knowledge, right? That only could get it from you. You know how I have this thought exercise, right? Where you deal with this knowledge stuff and you're showing and proving it to someone that will never get it. They're never gonna get it. and yet do the thought experiment. Go through it and say, listen, I see myself as the true living God. And so how do you see that? And you think of the way that they would respond and counter you, and you come with your counter. And you have this internal dialogue with someone that you know will never bear witness to you. Could be a parent, could be someone that you know, right? Idiot on the block, whatever it is, right? You also have to do these thought experiments, these dialogues, right? You actually have to do these dialogues with yourself as well.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So in this mathematics, though, the day's mathematics, though, is the first overt dialogue. It's your planning system. One of the ways that you know you're using today's mathematics, though, is if you immediately think to yourself and start aligning the mathematics to your task that you're going to do today. You see what I'm saying? There are many days, though, you know what I'm saying? There are many days, though, where the day's mathematics just pushes me out of bed. Especially like, for example, Thursday is the last day I do heavy weightlifting. And I'm doing this at 5 a.m. So when I wake up on Thursday, I'm like, this is the last day. But I also, it's the culture day. So I was like, yo, this is the way of life. It's going to get done no matter what. Phrases like that I say in my head, it will be done regardless to whom or what. These are phrases from the lessons that have become ingrained in my mentality. And so they become mantras that I use selectively and when they are necessary to be used. So when you look at degrees that are powerful, like the fourth day, you know what I mean? You have to embrace that. You have to say, well, what was I taught? I was taught it's a way of life, and that is what? It is your understanding that is lived. And now you go through the assignments of what is my understanding? In everything I did today, what is my understanding? Or what am I going to do today that is definitely based on my understanding? That is the most cultural thing we'll do. What is the most cultural thing you do? You know what I'm saying? That's how you deal with the matter. When you see every day, like tomorrow will be based on power, then you look at what do you have influence over? Do you have influence over yourself? The things that you say you must do, will do, ought to do. The way you know how you judge your power over yourself? The things that you know you ought to do, can they get done? Not the things that you're gonna definitely do all the time, all of that. The things that you ought to do, can they get done? See, these are things this is how you deal with the mathematics. You apply it to yourself. You know what I'm saying? All I did was muse and rant. In my mind, I just went off and thought about power, what it means.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? This is what you do. You know what I mean?
I'm realizing that. I'm realizing this slowly but surely.
That's peace. The trick knowledge. Why does the trick knowledge part of the degree get to you, God? Explain that. I think if you explain it to me, then I could add on with that. You know? If it's bothering you or something like that. Remember, trick knowledge is knowledge. It's just how to mask knowledge. It's teaching them how to use it for their own gain. You know what I mean? So when Musa taught them trick knowledge, it doesn't mean that Musa taught them just a truth and how to do devilishment. He also taught them how to hide the truth, how to find the truth. See, he did something that many in the society at that time weren't doing. They weren't identifying how someone could get food because they weren't doing it. You see, if you go into a society that isn't doing devilishment, they can be easily overtaken because this is foreign to them. You know what I mean? Look at the indigenous populations. We assume that if those populations were like that, then in many respects, though, if you go back even further, many of the populations, though, of original people in Mecca had to be like that too. Doesn't mean that they were naive. It means that they were ignorant. They had never experienced this. So It's like the Tao. The Tao Te Ching says, righteousness is not known until the wrong prevails. Like the devilishment has to happen.
Right.
And what that means, it means that righteousness always existed.
Right.
But no one said, this is what righteousness is. And then we wrote like a fucking book on it.
Right.
You know, so literally I wrote a book on it. Right?
Right.
This shit, devilishment exists, so I gotta tell people that, yo, this is what it is. But if it always existed, there ain't no need for me to write this shit. You know what I mean? It's basically ingrained. It's not necessary. You know what I mean? So certain concepts could be so natural that they don't even see that they exist. You know, like they say the indigenous people didn't really understand what they meant by land being bought. They didn't use, because they didn't use land
money.
like that.
They didn't use money, did they?
Right? They didn't use land like that. They didn't have ownership of things like that. That wasn't something to own. It was something to use with.
Right.
You know, you interact with. So the whole perspective of the earth is different, right? So now you introduce their way and it conquers. It conquers. It changes the reality and then overtakes it for themselves. That's what conquering is, right? Culture is Angel Suarez. Okay. I have never seen you here. You know, in my class, though, I just want to say this, like, we try to make the digital class as real as possible, right? With somebody, and this is a good answer, Angel Suarez, there's nothing wrong with what you said. You said culture is Islam, I self-Lord and master, right? But in my classroom, would I allow someone to just barge in and say, culture is Islam, I self-Lord and master? Like, just a random kid. Just open the door and yell that shit out. I'd be like, who are you? You know what I'm saying? So the more you get out of me is the more that you give to me. Make your identity known. See, we don't deal with a mystery God, right? So I want you digitally. I want everyone to get into the habit of saying, in these ciphers, though, introduce yourself. Stop being so scared of being a mystery in certain places. A lot of people, even with the knowledge, they keep themselves a mystery on social media, shit like that. Like, what are you scared of? We're supposed to be out here teaching. I don't need to be a mystery on the social media. I'm right here at the school.
Right.
So what social media gonna be scared? I'll be scared of. Why I gotta be scared of that? Like, oh, they'll have this, they'll have that. I'm here. If they've been taking pictures though, they got some nice ones of me. In fact, I want to see some. I want to see some nice clothes. Like, wow, I remember that shirt. You know what I'm saying? Right? Oh man, I look horrible right there. You know what I mean? Right? So it's like, treat the digital classroom, and this is not something to berate Angel Suarez, right? But if you're gonna drop the heavy, like you know this, then you make sure that I know who you are. You see what I'm saying? Right? Malik said it's a total amount of a sum of your activities: diet, exercise, read, music, the first part of your outer expression. I see. I agree with that. That is culture. Clara Rodriguez Torres, though. I remember you, though. Peace. Self-reflection. Yes. Mathematics. Today's mathematics is much like that. Much like that. It really ought to be, and it should be. These are the wrong glasses to look. If he was teaching knowledge and wisdom, why trick? I see that as not being upfront. No. He's teaching trick knowledge. You're thinking that he was doing trick knowledge to them. Musa was teaching the devil to be able to go back. He wasn't doing trick knowledge with them. In other words, he wasn't using trick knowledge against them. He was teaching them trick knowledge. In other words,
he's showing them this.
He's the educator. He's trick knowledge 101. Right. This is trick knowledge 101. Right. So he's not doing trick knowledge to them. He's not doing that. He's teaching them about that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. He's teaching them that, right? It's like he's not teaching them. He's not hustling them. He's teaching them hustling. Right. He's teaching them how to present themselves, when to lie, when to steal, right? Because when you learn, right, you're gonna teach somebody to lie so they don't get caught. You can teach someone to steal, and they never even miss it. You know what I'm saying? These are the things that he's teaching them, right? How to lie to the original man. All of these things. This is what he's teaching them, right? So this is what that means. You know what I'm saying? And this is what they were meant to do, right? Peace. You said pardon self. Angel Suarez, you said pardon self. I come in the name of beloved Allah. Peace. That's what it is. That's what it is. Because if he was here, if it was like showing proof, if it was the the yearly show and proof, which I hope I see it'd be wonderful if I saw everybody here, you know what I'm saying, come through, right? It's so unfair, right? Because we're from Mecca, you know what I'm saying? They get to come to us though, you know what I'm saying?
So those are people around us.
Right. Because the show and prove is like a yearly event, you know what I'm saying?
When do they have the show and prove?
The show and prove, wait, they gave the date. The show and prove is usually the second Sunday of June, because the Father was returned to the essence June 13th, 1969. So it's always on that weekend to show that Allah lives.
Okay.
It's nearly always at the Harriet Tubman School around the corner here. I could have sworn I saved it somewhere. I don't know why I saved it. But it should be, let me see my calendar here. Come on, give me the calendar. Yeah, the weekend of the 9th, 10th, and 11th. So it should be June 11th. Okay. 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 All right. We are near 8:30 here. Malik, you said so. He's teaching the devil who they are and what they need instead of civilization. No, he's teaching them civilization too. They're going to need all of these things. You know what I'm saying? Right? Just like if somebody's learning how to kill, I'm saying that when we learn how to fight, we learn how to kill. We have to. But we also learn how to keep things alive. We spend more time learning how to keep people alive. People have no idea that when you learn martial arts, though, like when you're really learning, though, you're learning how to heal. You're learning healing arts. You know what I'm saying? And the first person that you practice these healing arts on is you, because we get battered up the most. You're hurting yourself. You're training, right? So you're healing yourself, right? But no, he had to teach them everything. He taught them civilization. Their product is not going to be a civilized student, as we know, a civilized person, but they're learning of civilization. You know what I'm saying? Right? That's definitely what they learn. Right? You're going to learn about what you're going to overtake. You know, that's what they learn. Right? All of the above. That's right, Harmony. All of the above. You know what I mean? They had to learn everything. So on that note, at assignment though, would people write what would they do to teach the world, save the world, deal with this separation that was looming, and do it differently than Yakub? That's the assignment, the thought assignment.
Assignment.
I prefer it written because I love writing. I love to see your writing.
So what do you want? What do you want?
When you do it.
What is it?
Especially for any student that is like you, Sam, that is older, an adult, I don't give due dates. It's when you do it.
Okay, so what is it that you want me to do?
You know what I'm saying? Yakub made the devil.
Right.
But he made the devil to cause this reality of us seeing what was wrong with ourselves and deal with that for these 6,000 years. Okay. These 6,000 years technically is only less than a quarter of a Quran, which is 25,000 years. So in a larger scheme, though, it's only less than a quarter. So in the larger scheme of things, it would seem faster, right? A solar year is 26,000 years. A Quran, 25. So you see the link with this. So Yakub did it, we could argue, I argue, is in a pretty fast amount of time. I want you to disagree. I want you to see it differently. But then, what would you do? Muhammad wrote something. He didn't come today, so I didn't have my disagreements and my naysaying about everything that he said.
Okay.
But what would you do differently?
If I was Yakub,
If you were gonna do, if you were in a position of Yakub where you're going to do something about this reality that is looming, and if you don't want to make the devil to show this reality in a physical being, then how are you going to help humanity? How are you going to help it? Because one thing's for sure that we have to say, Yakub saw a giant problem and took excessive means.
So you saying
to deal
that
with it.
the devil was created to show us our BS?
To show and prove that Allah's the God, always has been, always will be. So that's a lot. I just told you the degree. So
Wow.
if that's why he did it, to show and prove that Allah's the God, always has been, always will be, then if that's the reality, then how would you do it?
Oh shit!
If you don't want the devil to be around and you thought there was a mistake in Yakub's evil boogeyman,
what would I do instead? Okay. Wow.
I want you to say and take that position of leadership and say what you would do.
Wow.
Because I want us to be God is to be responsible for all things. How will you be responsible? One thing we have to admit that is Yakub took the responsibility. See, we read these teachings are Muslim.
He showed and proved.
He showed and proved he could make devil. Now, whether we have dealt with the problem that he was trying to deal with is for us to answer.
Okay.
Not for Yakub. He did the best he could. The teachings that we have as 120 are Muslim teachings. They write everything as prophecy. Everything is epic. Everything must be and so it shall be. And then the rock is made, right? Tablets pounded. It will be. It was destined to be. It had to be. It was going to be, right? So we forget to think that these are men's decisions. Real, that God is a living man, right?
Right.
Like Bob Marley said. And he saw a problem. And this was his best way in his genius mind of handling it. That was it. And if you disagree with it, and I mean not just you, but everybody, and think this is horrible and a terrible idea, and it was devilishment for sure, because we see these white people, what they have done as a macro reality. That keep it real. If we took on the greatest white people, so good white people, abolitionists, all of these good white people, put Larry Bird in there because he was dope. He was dope. Right? I love watching Larry Bird. We put Larry Bird in there. Good people. Right? Boom. Is it worth these anomalies? Because we take they're like an anomaly compared to all the devilishment that white people have done. And that they have caused. Was what Yakub did worth it? Did it solve the problem? Because to most of the gods and earths that get knowledge, though, they haven't admitted to themselves that they don't know if they know how to solve the problem.
Right.
And if you take on this challenge and say, well, what would you do differently? See, you might agree. You might be like as I collect essays, most people are going to agree that it was wrong and they're going to try something different. Like Muhammad, he wrote something. No, we're going to do something different. We're going to deal with this problem differently.
Right.
So I'm going to continue to take on the voice of Yakub and justify Yakub. You hear me? Right. But if I get an essay that says, listen, what Yakub did need to be done, and I agree with it because we can handle it and this will work.
Well, the thing is,
I want to see is what you will do now.
Okay, so
that's what we're developing. By developing what you would do differently, and not do, if you couldn't do what Yakub did, what would you do?
Okay.
Then you're developing the ability to say, well, Yakub did do this, and what can I do now? Because we go on saying that we're true and living God, but I guarantee you the majority of gods don't see themselves as powerful as Yakub.
Right, because I've always said to myself, well, all this shit could stop. We can stop it. I say it all the time. I said, do you want this to change? We can change it.
We have to. does each individual God, saying that we're the true and living God,
Right.
do they honestly see themselves as powerful
No.
as Yakub? And the truth is, they don't.
No, they don't.
Deep down, they
No,
don't.
They don't.
And so they have to see that what Yakub did was an evil, despicable thing, a piece of shit asshole, and it's a way to equalize it.
But you know what?
I could never do anything as great as Yakub, so I don't see him as a good man.
But what you're saying right there, I never, like, when I hear elders speak, or even people in the nation, they don't really speak as Yakub as crazy or a bad person. They don't say he was. Only white people say he was a mad scientist. The guards or the nation, they don't say Yakub was a mad scientist.
The elders I learned from did not have vitriol like that.
Right.
When it came to teaching about Yakub, it
Right.
is what it is, right? But my peer group and most of the people that are teaching today, they teach that Yakub is evil, he's bad, and they put good or bad into this equation. And I'm saying good or bad is not part of this equation.
Right, I've never heard
and
that Yakub was evil.
That's why we keep asking why did he do it? Why was so? And that's why I want you to write there, say, even if you say, I think that he did the best thing, and it's our duty to end this shit, right? Fine, that's another essay. Right? That's another essay, right? And it's a never-ending one because we're in it, we're doing it, we're in this. But I want you to say, if you didn't, if you hate it, I can tell by your writing. But if you accept it, that's fine too. But what the challenge is, what would you do different than Yakub? How would you manifest this reality to heal? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Without making the devil. Because that means that the devil, though, is a dissatisfaction that is inside the original people's minds.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? This shit would not farm it, though, if that wasn't in there. You know what I'm saying? No matter what anybody says, that shit was in there. You know? It was real. It was real. And that's the real horror about it. Harmony, you said God, Musa taught the devil of the forgotten trick knowledge. That's not just devilish, but knowledge. That would consist of how to adapt as well. Absolutely. Absolutely. 793, you said, no doubt, had fan that went to Albany with J Live, taking it back to Born, Peace. Yes. Remember, I joked with J Live when I first met him. He was like, I knew you was God because you kept saying peace on the phone. I was like, yeah. And we did the peace, and he said, make sure that Double XL doesn't say I'm a Muslim. I was like, guarantee, God, you know I'm right there. It's going to be. When it came out, that's what they said. J Live is a Muslim. Son of a bitch. And I burned the bridge there because I cursed everyone out and I demanded a correction in the next issue. A little correction. All I had to do, a little snippet, say, J Live is not a Muslim. He's a 5%er. Nope, they couldn't do that. They was like, no, motherfuckers. Yeah, fucked up. Anyway, Mr. G1, you said when you warn someone and whether they do or don't listen, you've done your duty. Yes. Harmony, you wrote the inscription. The inscription. Yeah. You know.
Wrap my brothers in.
We are wrapped up. Yes. Doesn't feel early though.
I know, right? I can't wait. I was in Brooklyn all day.
That's peace, God. Yeah. But everyone has their assignments.
Mm-hmm.
I do not have everyone's questions though. So, any questions that anyone has after we do this, all of that, email me. That includes people I've never seen here before. Like, what was this? Let's see. Right? Be love Allah, right? You can email me, we can build, right? You can let me know who you are, how long you've had it, etc., etc. If you're in the New York area and you don't come here, though, you are being lazy. I will hurt you. Don't make me come and get you. Okay? But I'm serious. If you can. Not everybody can always make it just because they live in the area. You know what I'm saying? But until next week, we will build and Spend the time creating, work on the assignment. You know what I'm saying? That assignment is what I said. What would you do, Harmony, if you didn't do what Yakub did? How would you handle it? Okay? How would you handle it? Okay. That's a thought experiment. All right. Peace.